It's time to fight. It's time to fight. If you down to fight, then let's start the strike.
Welcome to the Amazon Teamsters podcast. I'm your host, Randy Corrigan, the director of the Amazon division at the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. On this show, you get to hear from the workers that got to a majority, traveled that journey, inspired by other workers, and they inspired themselves to take on one of the biggest corporations in the world, specifically laying out those demands, those changes that they want to see in a Teamster contract that, quite frankly, many other Teamsters have benefited their entire career. They want to make sure that Amazon doesn't degrade this industry, want to run this industry into the ground with poor wages and working conditions and a lack of benefits. Just a simple living wage, a fair living wage, so that they can own a home in the neighborhoods in which they live and work. Here, you're going to hear directly from them what inspired them. You're going to hear a really cool story about how hundreds of thousands of workers almost 100 years ago did something very, very similar, and how it inspires workers just like you. Make sure you tune in to this exciting show. If you're wondering how you can sign up to organize and inspire your facility, make sure you sign up at teamster.org/Amazon. Here we are for another exciting show. I'll tell you what, like having Juan and Daddy-O on here to talk about not only their push for a majority, but what happens afterwards and how we hold a big corporation accountable and what the future looks like. In other words, the transition from building a majority to then making sure that the temporary changes that are happening on the job have shifted into something permanent and what those things are. I really think a discussion is going to be really important. I'm really excited to hear from these two individuals about the things that they want permanently changed in a Teamster contract. Obviously, millions of workers in this space, in this industry over the last 100 years have had those protections in writing in a union contract in transportation. This is what Amazon workers are fighting for. And to hear specifically from workers that performed the job, and I think that hearing their testimony to specifically what they're doing and what they're working for and what those changes are going to be and what is going to be memorialized in a Teamster contract is so exciting. And obviously the list gets bigger. The more you talk to more workers, the better it's going to be. I have Juan and Daddy-O here. Juan works at KSBD. Daddy-O comes out of DIL 7. Let's first start with Juan. Introduce yourself and the job that you do.
Hey, Randy. Thank you. My name is Juan. I work at, like you said, I work at KSBD. I work in the docks department. So in the docks department, we deal with the inbound, outbound freight that comes through trailers, mainly offloading, reloading trucks to go out, putting them on conveyance. I'm also, one of the positions that I hold in there is of a ship clerk. So I, behind a computer, helping allocate trucks to doors, making sure that everything comes in on time is a really important part because, you know, when we're dealing with freight of that size, like you want to time the different banks in a way to make sure everything gets out on time. So yeah, that's
sounds again like an important job in the entire system. Daddy-O.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Randy. Going out 3.5 years now, being a delivery driver, step van driver as well. Also doing fleet managing in there, just trying to service the vans as best as I can in that facility and our DSP specifically.
What do you guys like? What's the demand? Like, obviously you guys have made a lot of things change in your operations since you have started to build towards a majority. So let's talk a little bit about the things that have changed, but also what you're fighting for to be permanent. And I think that, a lot of people the naysayers always be like, oh, why are you doing this? And why are you putting all this effort? A lot of times you get these changes, you get some additions or you get some improvements. And in those improvements, what comes with that is sometimes not an appreciation for that you were able to kind of level it up a little bit. Let's say you got some raises or you got some working conditions change. Let's spell those things out for listeners so they really understand. Juan, let's start with you first.
As I think most people can understand, one of the biggest things is wages. We want to make sure that we're being paid a living wage. Some of the other main things that we're fighting for is, affordable healthcare, just cause, which is a huge one in not just in our facility, but in Amazon all across the board. There's They are very fire happy at times when they want to start trimming the fat, as they say. So we deserve more protections from that. But to talk a little bit about things that we've won and then how the company has like reflected or redirected rather. When the organizing at my facility started, we pushed for a higher raise, and KSBD actually received one of the highest raises of the Amazons in the area. Like people were being told that they have to match what everyone else was getting, but because there was organizing being done at KSBD, they got a higher raise than some of the other facilities. But then you fast forward to this year, or this past year rather, and then when it came around to give us the annual raise, they gave us, for people who had just been in the shop, I think like 65 cents, which honestly in like this economy is like a slap in the face. It was honestly insulting.
That was just this last year?
Yeah, it was a range of
when you saw people literally across the airport get significantly more that are under Teamster contract.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. We all heard the stories about like Stater Brothers and some of the other Teamster contracts that got like $4. It was like $10 over the course of a few years.
Yeah, $10 or $12 depending on which industry or sub industry, and then $4 right out the gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were already at a higher level.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it just goes to show that, like Amazon was willing to like placate us at first with giving us a higher wage when they felt a little bit more scared. But then as soon as they maybe felt a little less heat, they were like, okay, we can throw them crumbs.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute too. Let's talk about the living wage. You say wages is an issue. One of the things that frustrates me is I hear when workers are doing what they're doing and it hits the paper or hits the media, Amazon always comments and they say, oh, well, we're already giving workers in this industry what's comparable or what the Teamsters are promising and all these things, right? First of all, they're obviously twisting everything that we say. We don't need to promise anything. What we really do is let's talk about what workers in this industry are already making. Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out who they're comparing you to in the industry, because I'm sorry, you're at the bottom of the industry. If you do a straight comparison, we can go around the building. There's UPS right down the street. There's Stater Brothers, a whole bunch of other operations, and people make significantly more in wages. And when their increases come around, they're getting significantly higher ones. So when Amazon has this quote that says, we're already doing what the industry drives. How does that make you feel when you hear something like that? Knowing firsthand from workers literally across the airport what they are receiving significantly different than you. Different than you.
Yeah, no, it's insulting.
It's insulting.
It's like, no one appreciates getting lied to your face. And, I see my coworkers who have to come in on 2 extra days, pull 60 hours a week to try and, keep a roof over their heads, keep the rent paid. Folks, I know coworkers who work multiple jobs to try and just, stay afloat. And then, like you said, we hear about the stories about the Stater Brothers workers where we had a buddy of mine had a funny conversation with them where they asked about like how they deal with rent. And the guy like looked around and laughed and said, like, none of us rent here. Like we all own our own homes. And like that kind of idea of like getting to a place financially where we can
back up again. And no one's saying this to be like insulting or critical.
100%.
Like the Stater Brothers employees or the union, the Teamsters were kind of set back a little bit and said, rent? What do you mean rent? We've all bought homes.
Yeah.
And like looking at you going, like, why doesn't your employer provide enough for you to buy a home?
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to set in like that, the reality of that statement in two ways, not only for the Teamster who knows that they own a home already because of those wages over a long period of time, then looking at somebody in the industry, that had to be a heavy moment to hear that.
It was because I'm a 32-year-old man right now. Like I want to be able to start my life, and my life has been started, but like right. settle into a house and stuff, and like for so many people here in the Inland Empire, like the warehousing is the main job you can get, and Amazon is obviously a huge part of that. And so there's so many people who live here who are, because the wages kept so low from Amazon, this multi-trillion-dollar company where where Jeff Bezos is sending people into space and stuff. are being kept from having a living wage where we can afford to even think about owning a home one day. But we look up to, like, honestly, it was inspiring to see the Stater Brothers workers and like the where they are in life.
And their willingness to shut down an operation, walk off the job, leads to their worker power, which obviously leads ultimately to those good contracts. Let me shift gears real quick. Daddy-O, why don't you chime in here on the driver side? Because, whenever anybody sees the sign Teamsters, they always think of drivers first, simply because of our heritage and our history that go back more than 100 years. You hearing Juan say what he's saying, what do you got to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said it too, a lot of my coworkers always found it funny, but honestly, I mean, coming from a worker's perspective on working for Amazon, it's like, we're treated like the stepchildren of Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, it's, all across the board, no matter if you're warehouse or not, you're going through your own issues. But I feel like us as workers, like for drivers specifically, like we're out in all elements of the weather, right? Amazon has such a high, they care so much about you being in full uniform, and they'll write you up and or fire you, suspend you if you're not in full uniform. But, even delivering in Chicago, we're not given jackets, right? So my first year there, it's like they give you one vest, one polo, and a pair of pants or shorts, depending on what season you get hired on. But it's like, okay, well, if I'm
and those all have the Amazon brand on it, right?
Correct. But they like to say at the end of the day, those are not our workers, right? So it's like, well, if you want me to deliver in, my first peak season, I delivered in a vortex weather where all UPS trucks were off the road. FedEx was off the road, right? The post office was off the road. Schools were closed, but best believe we were still having to be out there delivering, right? At that time, my route was right off of the lakefront. So knowing that fact, it's always cold. 10 to 15 degrees colder. Right. So it's like I'm out delivering in negative 15 degree weather, and but I don't have a proper jacket, but I could get written up. But how can I have
you get written up for not having the thing they don't provide?
Right. And then they want you to at least wear the vest, but it's like that vest is not going to go over a thick enough jacket for me to be delivering in a vortex weather. You get what I'm saying? So it's like we've dealt with so much. And even like you said too, like even like Juan was saying, there's like, delivering in some of these areas, like we couldn't even afford apartments in these areas we're delivering, let alone buy a house, right? Even imagining buying a house in that area, you know what I mean? And talking to UPS drivers that are delivering on that same route that I'm delivering on and seeing the comparison of what they make comparing to us, like my first year, I start off at $1,750. In a big city like Chicago, that's chump change.
And
that's
a UPS driver made $1,750 somewhere around 1988, 89, right. Maybe 1990s. Yeah. I'd have to go back. I'm just trying to, through my head, do the best memory I can at extracting. But I tell you, like, you'd have to go back a long way for that wage to match up. Yet, how does it make you feel when you hear Amazon say, we're already providing all these people or these workers what Teamsters are promising?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a slap in the face. It's huge disrespect, and you really look at it like, wow. At the end of the day, the workers is truly what made this company the $2 trillion company it is today. It's not the DSP owners, it's not Jeff Bezos himself. It's the workers like me and my coworkers out there delivering that last mile delivery service, right? It's the warehouse workers getting us those packages. So it's like the workers are what made this company what it is today. So for us to be getting less than the crumbs on the plate is like, it's a huge disrespect. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Do you see a UPS driver with a nice warm UPS jacket on that lake
all
effect?
All the time.
Look, I'm not saying it to be mean. I just, you get that, the irony in this sometimes when you point it out. You're most people in the country don't understand what lake effect is and how cold and how different the temperature drops so drastically and dramatically. Not only that, but then snow comes up in a second, right? These are all conditions that union workers, Teamsters, UPSers, their contract outlines exactly what their equipment's going to be.
For sure.
And what is it that Amazon does for those working conditions when you run into that?
Oh, you'll be lucky enough if they might have a couple little things in their driver snack shack to give you, they'll give you a couple packs of hot chocolate and say, hey, go find some hot water. But you better not stop at a bathroom that's out of your route to use the bathroom properly like a decent human being. So
And that's why these workers are organizing, right?
Yeah, of course. That's why we're organizing. That's why we're fighting for a difference. And it got to the point where we had to fight for like, hey, look, you want us in full uniform? We need jackets. It was so bad too, Randy.
Pause there for a minute. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Something that simple. It's 10 degrees outside. I'm making deliveries outside. It's cold.
Yep.
Do I get a jacket provided?
Right. And hopefully you're in a truck or a van that day that has warm heat. Like me being a step van driver, you don't have a whole lot of heat.
So you want a provision in your contract. What I'm hearing from you is, because the negotiator comes out of me now, right? What I'm hearing now is, okay, I want language in my contract that says if the heater's not working in the vehicle, I'm not going out.
Right.
Correct?
Of course.
Also, if there's not a warm enough jacket hanging on the back of that chair or hanging on the door, right behind the door, I'm not going out because you're not putting me in those elements. And guess what? I'm going to sit here and get paid until you provide me the proper equipment to do the job. That's the kind of stuff you're looking for in a union contract, right?
Of course.
Yeah, that's in almost every one of our union contracts. Like that's just a staple in this industry. And what drives me nuts is hearing Amazon say that they're doing what's right by the industry. They're doing what's right by these workers. They're doing all the things that they need to do. And these workers don't need a union. They don't need the Teamsters. They don't like when you hear that and then you recognize how they're degrading the conditions. It's almost like they're going back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, where they're trying to control what that industry looks like at the very bottom. They want everybody at that bottom. Does that make? I mean, how's that? I'm sorry for rambling on here. I just, it gets me worked up to hear it because I'm hearing the stories from you as workers being impacted by it. And I've negotiated, hundreds and hundreds of contracts, been part of tens of thousands of workers changing their lives in this journey that you're on right now. What are some of the other things, Juan, that you guys are really fighting for in your operations?
Yeah.
Because you deal with extreme heat. He's dealing with extreme cold. He deals with some heat, but being up in that area, you deal with extreme heat.
Yeah. Talking about safety, I think that's a huge concern for us too. It was just like 2 years ago that there was these wildfires. I don't know if folks are too familiar with the Inland Empire, that we're kind of really prone to wildfires out here. And there was smoke filling up the entire area, and KSBD is an air hub. We have the ramp outside with the airplanes, and the ramp workers and the workers inside were being forced to work in smoke. People were coughing up black stuff, like getting faint. And, Amazon was essentially just trying to make everyone work through it. And it wasn't until workers got together and forced the company to
shut it down.
They shut it down.
That's right.
But yes, so things like protections against the environment, especially for our workers who work outside, making sure that safety on the inside is actually enforced in a way that's fair, in a way that actually cares about our safety. But one of the big things that I'm actually thinking about right now too is automation. Like in my department, we deal with a lot of robots, and there's been big talk that in my department we have a task that we do called Water Spider, which is essentially we move the shuttles, the go-karts, the pallets from one staging area where it's being built to the trucks. We've been hearing that Amazon is working on robots that can do that job without us, just a robot that can pick it up, move it into the trailer without any kind of human interaction. And that's 80% of my department. And, without a union contract offering us some kind of protections, that making sure that workers are still going to be getting paid or having a job, Amazon is going to cut those jobs as soon as they get those robots working. And I think that's one of the most important things too.
Yeah, making sure that transitions in automation, transitions in technology, transitions in any of these spaces that affect your work environment, workers have a right to bargain 100% of the effects of that, the future of that, and every impact on the job. I know that the average American worker doesn't understand that they have that right, but they do. They absolutely have that right, and they have that power. Daddio, you got any other of these issues you want to raise up here regarding the things around the drivers that the drivers are fighting for?
Yeah, I mean, just also, we're fighting for, incentive pay. I mean, just respect alone, right? Like, the way I see it is like, how many times have I been through and seen incidences on the news or different cases where, Amazon's just like, those ain't our drivers. But at the end of the day, we're driving in your trucks, we're wearing your uniforms, we're delivering your packages. You have the right to fire us. And the DSP owner is just sitting there with his hands tied behind his back, right? At the end of the day, like everybody, we're not robots, right? Everybody makes mistakes. But when we're delivering, again, like I said, in cold, delivering in trucks with Super Bowl tires that they're constantly going to unground them if we say, hey, this truck is unsafe to drive. And we're sliding through red lights. We're sliding through stop signs right now. Amazon can literally, I've seen some of my coworkers get fired from Amazon directly in that. And the DSP owner can't do anything. But you're going to say that we're not your drivers? Like we're fighting for holiday pay. We're fighting for, time and a half and overtime and things of that nature, things that we should get, right? A big thing when we were organizing our shop was just seeing the huge victory that UPSers won when they renegotiated that last contract, right? They didn't even have to go on strike because that's the true worker power that showed, hey, look, nationwide, nothing will move if you don't grant us the contract that we want, right?
Yeah,
so
and
that was a huge thing for us.
Yeah, imagine now how big Amazon is, that the amount of power the workers have collectively on exactly that. You brought something up here a minute ago regarding incentive pay. I think you guys had an incentive pay at some point where there was a promotion where you could actually tip your driver. Like,
yeah.
What happened to that? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, that Alexa, thank my driver. Yeah, and even with that, they say they gave so much money out, but our DSP owner would show a paper of how many thank my drivers we got. And I want to say there'd be times where you'd see 20 thank my drivers, but you're only getting $5 because hey, we got maxed out. Well, who's keeping that money?
What's the maxed out mean? What's that mean, maxed out?
We
Doesn't
got
the tip
DSP
go to you?
Right, you would think, right? So it's like, what are we doing here?
And if they paid you enough, you wouldn't need the tip.
Of course.
Yeah.
And even down to like even during COVID, right? There was incentive pay and that got taken away. So it's like, how can you pay somebody a higher wage for a certain situation and then you take that away? Like it just doesn't make sense.
Daddio, I'm going to shift back over here to Juan, but you had mentioned about people getting fired. I know that, Juan, you guys have had some terminations and stuff where people have been doing some marches on the boss and taking control there at KSPD. Talk about that. What's that like to rally around somebody? I'm assuming that worker feels so empowered when you guys are rallying around each other like that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Like I said, like I'm sure we're all familiar with like Amazon, when they want to start to try and get rid of people, they'll look for any reason to try and get you out of there. And especially after we went on strike last year, they were looking for any loose threads of folks that they can try and cut out. And there was a couple coworkers that went negative on UPT, which is like the bank of hours that we have. And in the lead up to the strike, Amazon had told us, we can't guarantee, like they're basically telling us that like we won't get fired, but that they wouldn't give us our UPT back for going on strike. Lo and behold, people did get fired. And yeah, we had our coworkers rally together. We had groups of dozens at times. Whenever one of our coworkers got fired, that we would march up on the boss, whether it be head of HR or the GM, depending on who was available that day, and who was strategic to bring this concern up with. And we've had coworkers brought back. We've had one coworker who they've tried to fire almost 2 or 3 times. And because every single time we rallied, we were able to get that person's job back with back pay. And like, it's a trend that we still continue seeing to this day. We actually just had a coworker in not my department, but the one kind of right next to mine, who they were about to fire him for something like ridiculous in the weeks leading up to Christmas. Like it was like the last week of November. Like, It's always a horrible thing to fire somebody. Like
Yeah.
it's a horrible thing to lose your job, but they were going to let this man go right before the holiday season, right before rent was due. And yeah, we rallied again together, and we got them to say that they weren't going to let him go. And so it's really powerful, I think, when we're able to, bring someone back from the grave, so to speak.
What this tells me is where you're headed, where the workers at Amazon are headed. This is starting to happen faster, quicker, bigger, a more immediate response. That because Amazon is making the mistake of not sitting down and bargaining. This is where they're making a mistake. They don't realize that they're acquiescing power here. If they would sit down, bargain, have a grievance procedure, you would file a grievance, go through a process, you'd be able to have a hearing and all that stuff. What workers are realizing that they have the power to do and they have the right to do is they have the right that when Amazon wants to, let's say, suspend somebody or hold out their pay or whatever it is, that the workers can have an immediate reaction, not wait a day or two. I mean, literally 2 minutes from it being announced, once the employer does it, that the workplace can immediately rally around that individual or individuals, withhold their labor immediately on the job, stop the operation and say, this is protected concerted activity. This is what we're doing to protect ... situation, describe it and say, you need to make this change for us to go back to work. You workers, anybody listening to this, you have the right to do that. Mm-hmm. And what's happening is more and more workers are understanding that. More and more are speeding up the process that they engage that, because more and more workers are kind of exercising the muscle in that space. And it's really, really cool to see how fast that pace is picking up. And you guys are doing this.
Yeah, it's something that we the idea that really behind it is, we have to have strong organization in the shop. You have to make sure our committee's strong, that our supporters are connected and brought in.
And good communication.
Good communication, because it's always a level of organization and spontaneity.
That's correct.
Like if our structures are strong, Amazon's always going to do something that's going to mess up somebody. But if our organization is strong, if our structures are intact, then we can react and we can fight back, like you said, immediately.
Yeah. And then what happens is the employer goes to you and says, hey, what do we do to fix this problem? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I need you to get back to work. We got to get that stuff on the plane so it can go away. Right?
Yeah.
We got to get stuff on the truck, or we got to get it delivered. Right? They immediately, they're going, wait. How do we fix this problem?
Yeah.
You have the power. The workers have the power. Everybody there has the power. And it's just a matter of when they exercise it.
Exactly.
The one thing, let's deal with this subject. I actually like when I hear this, because I really like to get into an exchange with people over it. There's always this argument over unskilled worker. And let's just use a couple examples. I always say, why are you fighting for more? You don't deserve any more. First of all, since when do you as working people regardless of how much you make, unless you're independently wealthy, unless you never have to work another day in your life, you're a worker, right? Period. Let's get that straight, right? We're all working people.
Yeah.
And let's first not allow ourselves to be separated, look down on others based on what you want to call skill level, because I can't count how many times I've seen people quit your jobs, both of your jobs. It didn't have the skill who claimed you were not skilled, right? So let's get that funny piece out of the way. But let's use a janitor as an example. I always laugh when people say, "Oh, a janitor's unskilled." Many days, almost every single day in any operation, a very important person is the janitor, making sure that bathroom is clean, is stocked, because you may not be feeling well. You may have had a rough night and you're in a rush to get somewhere, and you get to the restroom and you are praying that the janitor did their job, right? Because if the janitor did their job and you get there, you are going to have a smoother transition in whatever you're dealing with in that particular moment. So obviously I'd like to put some funny in this, but there's all seriousness too, because, every single day in every bathroom in any workplace in America, quite frankly, the janitor is the most important person in that operation for a number of people that are undisclosed, right? Because it's not like you came out and said, hey, I just want you to know the janitor did a great job today. They don't get that kudos. So let's talk about how it makes you feel being unskilled, so-called unskilled. And I'm disgusted by those comments. I'm actually disgusted by anybody that falls into that trap. Who are you to think that your job is more valuable than somebody else's? Because, let's talk about that skill. A lot of those people that make those comments about being unskilled were sitting behind a screen during COVID while you were doing the work, while you had the skill to get out there and smash through one of the biggest public emergencies, public health crisis in America or in the world for that matter. You had the skill to make sure things still ended up where they needed to end up. Daddy-O, let's start with you. How does that make you feel when this whole unskilled argument comes in?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's so crazy because the thing is like not anybody can go out here and do this job, right? And it's kind of like I would like to see people that claim that this is an unskilled job. Oh, you're just a driver. Go find another one. No, at the end of the day, you don't say that to your UPS worker, right? Because that's a respectable career, right? I know people personally that have retired from UPS, have put kids through college through UPS, paid off houses through UPS in great neighborhoods, right? And the list goes on. So it's like working for a $2 trillion company. Where's the disconnect there? Why is it not the same, right? Why are we not respected the same way? Because at the end of the day, if this is just a regular job that it's unskilled, why is the consumer so dependent on us Amazon delivery drivers? So it's like that's one thing for me is like don't disrespect it, because at the end of the day, you're still waiting at home for us to deliver those sponges to you. You're still waiting at home for us to deliver that dog food or cat food and cat litter and even bottles of water, things that you could go get yourself.
Yeah, it prevented you from having to go to the store.
Right. So, and then you get the flip side of that where people are like, well, if I'm not ordering, you wouldn't have a job. Well, at the end of the day, we can always go tick for tack. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're fighting for more, and I don't think we're fighting for things that should be like,
you're not asking too much.
We're not asking for
but they want you to feel that way.
Of course.
Corporate America wants you to feel that's beneath you or you're beneath somebody else. And they want to layer all. Let's talk about skill again. Let's use professional athletes as an example. It wasn't until the last few decades that they've made a lot of money. But those owners, those corporations have made a ton of cash the entire time. Since any professional sport's been in play, the owners always made a ton of cash, but then tried to say, well, that's just a sport. Yet
and what happens to those sport people, right? What happens to those athletes?
Well,
their bodies get broken down.
Play baseball. They get paid to play a sport they love. They get paid to play. Yeah. Okay. Well, finally, they're getting a piece of the action here. Like, come on. Anyway. Juan, do you got something you want to chime in?
Yeah. First, you bringing up athletes just makes me want to give a quick shout out to the WNBA, who just voted, I think, like in the high 90% to authorize a strike.
Absolutely.
Shout out those workers, those athletes. But yeah, this conversation about like skill versus unskilled. It's like Amazon has this, really impressive logistics system. It's an impressive thing to be able to order something and get it to your house the same day, the next day. And it's us as workers who make it impressive. We're the ones who do that. We're the ones who get that box from us inside the warehouse, getting them into the right trucks or the right airplanes to get them to the facilities where people like Daddy-O can then take them in the last mile. Like, we are the ones who make that happen, and I think that we deserve a living wage. And I think that, and that's where I want to hone in on that phrase. It's a living wage. Like right now in the Inland Empire, it's $29 to be able to live comfortably. And I think that's what
live basics.
Basic. Yes. Sorry.
Easy, not comfortable. Yeah. Let's get that straight. To live basics.
Yeah. And that's what we're saying with fighting for this kind of raise, fighting for these wages, is that our workers deserve to live basically.
I would say more than basic.
More than basic.
See, you're being reasonable, and people think you're not reasonable. I would be at the table saying, "Wait a minute, I think they need to be in the mid-range." Anyway.
We're sometimes a little bit more. We as workers are sometimes more reasonable than we need to.
Absolutely, you are most of the time. I want to shift gears here just a little bit. Here, you. I know you've been studying a lot of history lately.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, how what you're doing is resonating with what you've looked back on historically.
Yeah. So I've been, we've been having a lot of conversations about like what it's going to take to win the contract at Amazon, and even just the state of like the labor movement in general right now. And one thing that I like to look back onto within our own history as a union, I like to think back of like the 30s. And for just quick context, like right now in the United States, what's our union density national? It's like what, 10%? 10%, right? In 1929, it was 7%. And it was before the NLRB. And then you had strikes, workers taking collective action all throughout the country. There was a big strike wave, big general strike wave in 1934, where our union, Teamsters in Minneapolis, with the coal miners and the drivers, and then drivers in the whole industry, went on a huge strike for union recognition, and they were able to achieve it. The workers really took control of the entire industry, and honestly, the city too,
and other cities.
Yeah, we could talk about Toledo. We could talk about San Francisco.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
But it was that kind of strength and that kind of collective action that led to our union recognition. That kind of strength and that kind of collective action that led to, from 1929 having 7% union density to just around 10 years later, 1 in 3 workers was a unionized worker. Like, that is an insane jump. And that's one of the things that I think is really inspiring about this fight, is that like, I want all of us Amazon workers to get a fair contract, to get for Amazon to come to the table. But I'm also inspired by the fact that like, we as Amazon workers, we could inspire the rest of the labor movement to even build up even more too.
It's not that you can.
We will.
You are. Millions of people are following your work. The last video with DJT6 is over 20 million views on just the walkout.
Yeah.
Those are big numbers. Mm-hmm. Those are workers that are being inspired by you. So it's not that you are inspiring workers, and you will inspire more. And then they're going to get more assertive because they see that it works. I love hearing, it's giving me goosebumps hearing you say this, because you're absolutely on the right track for what it's going to take. That you taking control is what is going to make the difference. You want a living wage. You want affordable health care. You want retirement pathway and platform. You incentive pay, respect. You fully understand the union difference. Fully understand it. And most importantly, respect. I heard disrespect, Daddy-O pointed out, right? Like making sure that you have respect at work. And all those things that I just listed that you talked about are the issues in which should be in your collective bargaining agreement. Guys, for us to wrap this up, what is your favorite part of organizing? And what's your favorite part of organizing? Like when you're organizing workers, what's the favorite part of all this?
If I'd go first, I mean, my favorite part of organizing is honestly to see people to realize their worth, right? And to get some of that power back, right? Like the biggest thing for me, even when I share with other Amazon workers and I rewatched the video of our March on the Boss, seeing 70 of us walk into that facility and walk straight into that office and see them like just tremble, scared. You could hear it in their voices. They didn't know what to say, what to do. They wouldn't take the paper from us. Taking some of that power back and letting them know that, look, we are the workers that make this possible, right? Without us, we can change it all. So getting to that point has always been my best feeling, because it's like, I take it back to like even just feeling like picking on the bully, like when you go back and you pick on the bully that's bullying all the innocent kids and the innocent people, and you put him in his place, is like, that's the biggest feeling, right? Like, so just to realize it and have my fellow brothers and sisters that I've met across the country, and, just to like, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how big of a city you're working in, how small of a town you're working in. Together, we can change things and really make a difference on a national level, and even like just for the future, because at the end of the day, Amazon's the biggest employer. If we can make this happen for everybody, what does that do alone for the economy? What does that do alone for the world?
Yeah, if you're making more money, people are buying more stuff. Right? Like it's real simple, buddy. Like, come on, Bezos. Right?
More Amazon deliveries going out.
Juan,
Yeah.
what's your favorite part? I got mine. I'm waiting to drop it on you guys. But what's your favorite part of this?
Yeah. I'm gonna piggyback honestly a little bit off Daddy-O because I think that was a great response. But yeah, I think that as workers, we're often told so much that our worth is less than, that we don't have that much power. But those are lies. Like we call this the worker power. Well, you have the show Your Worker Power Hour, but but yeah, I think through organizing, through working across different demographics within our workplace, because our workplace contains many different demographics, I've seen coworkers who have recognized their own worth and their own power. But not only that, the power and the worth of their coworkers, both as individuals and as a collective. Like I've seen workers like shed previous beliefs about things they held about one demographic people or another, and really realize that at the end of the day, we are all workers in together. Amazon. Yes. And Amazon is screwing us all over, but we are the workers who have the power to shut this down. So I think, just seeing the growth of people and people just like, it's a beautiful thing to see someone like really realize that you have power. Like
the moment their head gets held higher.
Yeah. Your back stands a little straighter.
Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing.
For me, the best part and my favorite part of organizing is seeing when workers cross over that threshold, and they know they got it. Like that moment where they're like, okay, I know we got to do this, and then the minute they cross that threshold and they know they've got control, for me, like I'm like. Put me in, coach, man. Where can I go? Like, I'm all about that. Let's go do some more of this, right? Like I'm getting goosebumps right now because I'm immediately thinking about all the times I've seen workers do it, and that's my favorite part because it's that aha moment that collectively you have an aha moment individually, and then you have a collective aha moment, and when that collective aha moment kicks in, those workers, they all have their back a little higher. They all have their head a little higher, and they're leaning in, and they're like, this is how we're going to get it done. And watching that employer immediately back up is beautiful. It's just an amazing experience. And so, look, this has been a great show, and listening to all the things you guys want to have in a union contract, and really, you guys have just peppered in a few things. Like union contracts have hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of things that are identified. Because remember, you can put literally everything that impacts your workplace. You can say, I want pizza at lunch every day. Now, you don't have any union contracts that say I get pizza at lunch every day, but you have the right to ask for pizza at lunch every single day. You have the right as a worker to ask for that at work. You have that legal right. And how strong you are determines what you're willing to exchange. Now, obviously, instead of having pizza every day, people would rather have a few bucks in their pocket, right? My concept and the reason why I bring this up is you can be that far reaching to say that every aspect of my work needs to be hammered out, period. And it's really important that more and more of those details get laid out. And so as you lay these things out, I guess I got a question for you just real quick before I wrap this up, because watching workers at Amazon on the move in 2024 and 2025 has been incredible. Watching 1 million Teamsters be completely supportive of workers has been just phenomenal. And watching the industry come together and coalesce to help one another has been this incredible journey. I just got to ask you a quick question. You two ready to shut it down?
Oh yeah, we're definitely ready to shut it down. Well, I'm ready.
Yeah. I'm ready to shut it down, not just ready, but because we need to.
Look, I think I spelled this out pretty good. This has been a phenomenal show, hearing some of the details, what 2024, 2025 look like, the journey, the road to a majority. You heard it right from the individuals that have traveled on that road, that have handled it, that have walked through it, that have inspired others, that have been inspired by others, and recognizing that millions of workers are behind them. They're seeing it in the data. They're seeing it in the views. They're seeing it in the connectivity and social media. And and making sure that workers understand that they have value and they have worth. And this crap about you not having respect, you not being skilled. Enough is enough. Put it in the past. Let's shut it down. This is the Amazon Teamster podcast. Make sure you tune in.
If you down to fight, then let's start the strike. Corporate greed is disgusting. Instead of us, they rather pay for union busting. Somebody said the working man a sucker. They took the stand and ran like a high jumper. Teams is local 804, we not having that. We gon' stand here and fight for fair contract. Fair wages on the table.